This is perfect timing. Be joined by former National Hockey League goaltender Dubnyk, who had a couple of very interesting stops and really made a name for himself for the Minnesota Wild as he carved out an incredible year and a run with that franchise. It's 100% hockey with Millard and Shannon, and there's a few different avenues to go, but let's start with Edmonton and the heat that's on their goaltending. What would you say to Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard if you had a chance to talk to them?
Oh man, hang in there. Gosh, and then after last night, it's tough. I mean, it just snowballs and it piles on, and at the start of the year, obviously, these guys have to answer this question every single day, every single game, even when things are going well. And I can feel right now that feeling that I had in my last year before I got traded. Not saying that anything is going to happen, but it was kind of that, like, he just couldn't get any sort of footing. And, they actually weren't bad at the start of the year. And this last stretch, now everyone's kind of talking about Edmonton needs to, all right, it's time now. Edmonton needs to start playing like the Oilers and playing like a playoff team. And then, you got these 9-1, 8-3 blowouts, and then they get a little bit of footing, and then it's kind of right back. So, it just seems to pile on. And then that, these guys could be playing well or above average, and there's still going to be talks about goalie trades and all this. And it's part of the territory. I know they've dealt with it, but man, it's hard. You just have to try to drown out the noise as best you can. It's really not possible to drown it all out, but you have to try to just shift your focus when you get to the rink on simplifying every little thing that you can down to the T-push. To try to just make it as simple as you can, so you're not letting the other stuff creep in.
Now, Edmonton did change goalie coaches this summer. Devan, does that make any difference?
It can. Like, I don't know. I would have to know what he's telling him, if there's a new message or what that message is. Sometimes just a new voice can help somebody. Goalie coaches are multiple things. They're obviously showing you technical things on the ice, how we want to play, how we want to approach the game. They're also sounding boards. They're guys to talk, to vent to, just talk about different situations. It's important, to be able to just talk through. It's another guy who sees the game like you do. Another set of eyes as well that can maybe be devil's advocate a little bit if you're seeing one thing. They're sounding boards, and that's a really important part of it. And it's really important, especially when you're going through a tough stretch as well, as the support system, a guy that has got your back. You got to have somebody in there that is going to go to bat for you, and he's going to have your back, and he's going to support you through these difficult times. And that's all part of a goalie coach.
Now, I've got to be true confession. So when I started my on-air career in 2009 in Edmonton, and I was not very complimentary to you at times.
That's okay. It took me a while to earn some complimentary play. So,
but to me, I wonder. There's two aspects to the question. A, how do you manage it away from the rink? In the community, when you're going to the grocery store. In a fishbowl like Edmonton is, or almost any Canadian city, I would say. And the other thing is, how do you manage it in the room when you get a sense that the guys are looking at you? Could you please stop a puck?
Yeah, well, okay, we'll start with the room. You hope. I think these guys, they I know they like the goalies for sure. They've always had their back. McDavid's out there talking last playoffs, enough about the goalies. We like our goalies, and so I think there's a whole lot more belief in that dressing room than there is necessarily in the city, in the area. As far as drowning it out, so and I'd like to think teammates, they know what kind of goalie, they know who he is as a goalie. And you want to support him as well and have his back. And as a group, I think everybody can probably look themselves in the mirror and say, we're not exactly helping them out. You look at that game last night, not exactly giving these guys the best chance to try to get their footing and get a roll going now. And saying that it's also our job as goalies to be part of that turnaround as well. Now, when it comes to as far as away from the rink, being in the fishbowl, I don't have an answer. It's to be honest, it's impossible not to. And this is what makes it hard. It's part of our job as professional players to be able to deal with this stuff. But it gets hard, and it's not even just being in Edmonton. I mean, I remember when I was struggling that year I got traded. I couldn't go. We were on the road in New York, and I went to a movie, and it was like 2 hours that I could shut my brain off for 2 hours and watch this movie. And it was like the second the credits rolled, reality hit me, and I remember that I sucked, and that things weren't going. And it's so hard not to just be overwhelmed by it, and you have to find ways to keep yourself busy, you can't just sit there and focus on it for 24 hours a day, but you spend your time trying to solve the problem and do what you can when you're at the rink, and do your best not to let it just consume you, because it's really hard not to, even when you're not at home in Edmonton. The media coverage is still there. The fans are still watching every move. And so you have to try to find a way. It's part of being a professional athlete.
How does Stuart Skinner come out of this on the right end?
I listen. I'm a huge Stuart Skinner supporter. I don't know how much time's left on it. I think I just want to see him. I want to see him settle in and just start to look comfortable. And that's the biggest thing is that it's starting to get a little scrambly, a little chaotic, which as the goalie that he is, that's something that he needs to bring is the calmness back there and the structure and the positioning. And so I think if he comes to the right side of it, if they do make a move goaltending wise, it's bringing somebody else in to compete with him, and maybe just take a load off a little bit, because right now it's all him. And this is another difficult part when you talk about the pressures and everything with Edmonton. Well, Calvin Pickard's not having a great go right now. And again, that you go back to the way the team's playing in front, they're not really giving anybody a great chance to play. But Stuart Skinner, when you're struggling, and this was that again, I keep going back to that last year in Edmonton because I just keep thinking about it. But when you're solely the guy,
I'm sorry we've done that to you.
Yeah, it's okay. Thanks for not gonna be able to sleep for weeks. This when you're solely the guy, like when I was coming up, and you look at, like, I had Nikolai Habibulin, and so it was this like security blanket that, even though if you didn't need it, you always knew he's there. You always had somebody that if like things went south and went off the rails, it wasn't solely on you to get it back. So you could take a step and take a moment and take a game off and go and figure stuff out and come on. And right now, that's not the case. It's all on him. It's all on Stuart Skinner, and that's a lot of extra pressure, knowing that he's not feeling good in the net. He knows the pressure's there. He wants to go out and win, and he has to do it every night. And if you have a game like last night, it's right back on him. There's not a guy, and no offense to Calvin Pickard, I think he's an amazing teammate, and all the guys love him, but he's not a guy that you're going to stick in there and play for a few games to take a breather and get a couple wins and get things on the right track. And so I think for Stuart Skinner to come out on the right side of this, is they're going to have to get somebody that can come in and be that person and compete with him and get the pressure off a little bit.
I'm not saying this is going through Stuart Skinner's head, but in 13-14, when you were battling through a similar situation, was there ever the thought of, it might be better if I started over somewhere else?
I never thought that, because and you know what, maybe it would have been different if I'd already played somewhere else, if that was the third stop or something in my career. But I always had this naive outlook that I was just going to be an Edmonton Oiler for life. I was an Albertan, I had family there, and you're a kid, you're just like, I want to play for the Oilers forever, even though we never won. But it was like, obviously they're going to make a change if you lose every season. But I always wanted to be an Oiler. Now, I don't think that just as a competitive mentality, you'd have this, like, I want to go somewhere else. I'm assuming he loves his teammates. He's been to the Stanley Cup final twice. I'm assuming he likes it there. And so your mind doesn't really go there now, whether that's something that might help or not. I guess we'll, see down the road. But I think Stuart Skinner is a good goaltender, and he's having a tough go right now.